Welcome everyone to one of our many events of the Irish Arts Week. My name is Natalie Nugent-O'Shea. I'm the Executive Director of Celtic Junction Arts Center. We are partnering with the Irish Fair of Minnesota to bring you the Irish Arts Week. But one of the things that we do quite regularly is welcome knowledgeable people with fantastic topics and do seminars so that we can get in more in-depth topics. So today we are actually delighted to bring you a special library topic. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Celtic Junction Arts Center or joining us perhaps from around the country or abroad, we are Minnesota's Irish Cultural Center. We have 4 programs: concerts, library classes, and outreach. You'll find that each one of those things are touched on in our Irish Arts Week, and you can find there's quite a few more things going on. We have some free classes in language and literature and dance. We have a music event that's actually following this one immediately that we're doing in partnership with the Center for Irish Music, and our sister Irish Cultural Center in Armagh has connected us with the South Armagh Traditional Arts Partnership. They're a music group up in Northern Ireland, and you could get a chance to actually experience some really exciting music together with them at 1:30 Central Time this afternoon, so about an hour and a half in from now. There are some other exciting things, including an outdoor ceilidh. Most of the things that are happening will be live streamed. If you want to check any of those events happening, you can take a look at CelticJunction.org. That's .org. So please check in with us, and we're very interested in your feedback too. Let us know how things are going. Meanwhile, it is my very deep pleasure to talk about our library program and introduce our library director. Brian is the perfect person for this job. He has an incredible background in library science, in research. He's done a lot of his own research called Evergreen Trad. He's looked into some of the most amazing stories about the lumberjacks in the north of Minnesota. He could wax poetic, I think, on many subjects, but the subject that we get to approach today is about some of the Eoin McKiernan's archival projects. So we get to delve deep into that subject. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Library Director, Mr. Brian Miller.
Hello, everybody. It's great to see some friends tuned in from all over the place, and even looks like maybe some people overseas as well. It's really wonderful. I'm just going to see if my video big for everybody, or can it be? I think you might be able to make me big on your screen. Yes. Oh, good, Amy. Thanks, Amy. All right. So I'm going to do this via a PowerPoint. So my face might disappear here in a minute. But what I'm talking about today is a fascinating family, and really a fascinating collection that comes from a family that lived here in St. Paul. Many of them still do live here in St. Paul. And they had roots in Scott County, Minnesota, southwest of the Twin Cities, in a farming community down there. But it's, I'll kind of go through the story about how the materials came to the library. There's some things that we now have digitized at the Eoin McKiernan Library as part of our archival collection. And hopefully, if people are interested in them, there will be a collection that others will use and incorporate into their research. But it was an amazing find when these recordings came to light, and there are other materials that have surfaced with them, and the whole thing is just incredible. I see some of the members of the Doherty family are logged in, which is great. Thanks for attending. And oh yeah, thanks, Chris. Here we go. I'm gonna share my screen and we will take it away. So if you have a question, I think there is there's a Q&A that you can click on, and there's also the chat, but the Q&A might be a better way to submit a question as we go. So the Doherty family, and I wonder if I can get that thing to go away at the top of my screen. Sorry. Show video. Aha, there we go. The Doherty family, Irish music in sound and story from Scott County and St. Paul, Minnesota. And there in that photo, we see Tony Doherty and his daughter Marge, who you will learn much more about today. Tony there at on this fiddle and Marge at the piano. And it really, the whole thing started for me with that photo and a group of photos that came with it. And these photos came from a neighbor of ours, just a few doors down, named Bill Nash. And Bill and his wife Carol have a sort of a garage bar that opens up to the alley. And I think it was my friend Randy Gosa and was in town. We were doing some gigs and we decided to walk over to Bill and Carol's garage bar and start chatting with them. And Bill started talking about his grandpa, who was involved in the Twin Cities Irish American Club, which was really interesting to me because that was something I'd heard about from Marty McHugh and other people in the community here. And so we got asking him, and did you have any photos of your grandpa? And at one point he said, "Oh, my grandpa played the fiddle." And I was like, "Well, you have to tell me these things, Bill." So he eventually produced these incredible photos from 1948. So that's Bill's grandfather, Mike Nash, on the right. And he was a collaborator with Tony Doherty and Tony's daughter, Marge. And so originally the photos, like they came from Bill, and I was really interested in his grandpa, but then I got interested in these other people in the photos, Tony and Marge, and decided to try to see if I could contact the Doherty family. And it was through doing that I tracked down Chris Cheney here. That's a picture of him with his grandmother, Margaret Doherty, Tony's wife. And Chris answered the message I sent to him with, not only do I know things about my fiddle playing grandpa, but there's also a tape of him playing, which was incredible for me to find out about. And so Chris and I met up. And sure enough, there was this tape that was made. I think, copies were made from the original, what I assume was a reel-to-reel. And it was made in 1958. And it captures his grandpa playing with Marge, his daughter, and other family members as well. So, but Chris didn't only bring over the tapes. He also brought this incredible photocopied book of handwritten and in some cases published memoirs from Margaret Doherty, who is Tony's wife. And she is really the hero in this story in many ways, because she just had an incredible sense of posterity and saving things, saving the history of their family. And she wrote these beautiful, beautiful memoirs. It's over 400 pages that has been lovingly photocopied by the family, preserving all these amazing recollections she had of them growing up in this farm area southwest of the Twin Cities. She actually was published by the St. Paul Dispatch in the 70s. They ran some of her memoirs, and I think that helped egg her on to keep writing memoirs. And just this book is just amazing, that the level of detail and the way she gets into talking about music in that farm community is just outstanding. So it took me long enough, but eventually I was able to follow up with Chris's cousin and another granddaughter, Sue Werdeman, here at her home in Ham Lake. And we just met earlier this week. And Sue has incredible bunch of photos. She's actually holding her grandmother Margaret's wedding dress there. And those are Margaret's wedding shoes on the table, and this interesting leather satchel that Margaret used to carry her teaching materials with to the country school that she taught at. But just huge thanks to Chris and Sue for being so generous with all the family artifacts. That's kind of what we're going to be looking at today and listening to. So Tony Doherty and his wife Margaret Doherty both grew up in Cedar Lake Township, which is that green box there in the map in Scott County, southwest of the Twin Cities, south of Prior Lake, close to Jordan, close to New Prague and Belle Plaine. And there were a lot of Irish people, Irish immigrants that ended up settling in farm country down really in various places all along the Minnesota River Valley. That's the Minnesota River that's winding down there on the north edge of Scott County. And there were Irish communities further out along the Minnesota River Valley But this was definitely a very Irish pocket where they came from. And it was their, well, at least in Tony's case, I think in both their cases, it was their grandparents' generation that were the immigrants. So they were born in this area in Cedar Lake Township, and so were their parents. So, you know, 2 generations removed from Ireland. But if you look at this plat map from 1898, around the time that Tony and Margaret were born, you could see a lot of Irish surnames there. And up kind of up in the center left, I believe that's both of their families. So PH, I think Patrick Henry Doherty is Tony's dad, and then PT is Margaret's dad, a separate Doherty family. Actually, she was also, her maiden name was also Doherty, but it's a separate family south of them there, and Ryans, and, you know, a lot of Dohertys. And if you look down below Bradshaw Lake, there's Michael Nash. I believe that is, if not a father or a close relative, or even possibly Michael Nash himself that appeared in that photo. So Tony's grandparents, Doherty, Donlan, Sheehan, and Keating were their surnames, and they were part of this generation of Irish people that cleared land and set up farms in this area in the 1850s. From the obituaries I was able to dig up, I believe that his grandfather, Tony's grandfather, Doherty, and his maternal grandfather, Sheehan, his last name Sheehan, both came from County Clare. His grandfather is remembered as an excellent step dancer. So there's a little bit of a record of that initial generation in Margaret's memoirs, and she talks a little bit about music and dancing in that generation. But, you know, a lot of them would have been quite old when she was a kid. But he is remembered as step dancing on the farm. And then we have quite a bit of information then about Tony's parents' generation. His dad, Pat, was born in 1858. So in Cedar Lake, he wasn't born in Ireland. It was his father, whose name I think was also Anthony, came from Ireland. And then Pat was born on the farm. So was Tony's mom, Marianne Sheehan. And from Margaret's wonderful memoirs, we know that Pat played the fiddle and had a beautiful voice for singing, she says. Tony's mom, Marianne, was a step dancer. There was an uncle, Mike Sheehan, who played the fiddle, and Aunt B. Sheehan, who was a step dancer. Margaret mentions these are all people from kind of their parents' generation. Mike Deely played the fiddle. Johnny Driscoll played the fiddle, and a nephew of his went on to play with Tony later. There was a Thomas O'Keefe, who she says played the flute. Now that's kind of a rare reference to the flute being played in a community like this, and also wrote poetry. And I'll read a little story she says about him in a second. There was an aunt, Kate O'Keefe, step danced, and a neighbor, Bidsy Ryan. You could see on that map, the Ryans were just right in the adjacent farm to them, also was a step dancer. And she says many more step danced. And she says about this Thomas O'Keefe and Tony's dad, Pat. While growing up in Cedar Lake, Pat collaborated with a friend named Thomas O'Keefe, who played the flute and wrote poems. Pat set O'Keefe's poems to music and sang them locally. So a bit of a songwriter there. And it's just so fascinating to me as a flute player to hear about somebody playing the flute. There were step dancing displays, frequently featured at local barn dances and weddings, and fiddlers were in high demand, Margaret says, of this generation. The Doherty family, Pat and Marianne, hosted gatherings also at their house on Sunday in the afternoon that featured music. And their son Tony then was born March 23rd, 1896. He was the 5th of their 6 children. And we don't have any photos, or I haven't found any yet, of Tony when he was younger than his wedding photo anyway. But I found this photo on eBay actually of a couple fiddlers in Madison, Minnesota, which is actually in the Minnesota River Valley further west. But anyway, Margaret gives us the origin story of Tony Doherty playing at the fiddle. She says, when he was a small boy, his father allowed him to sit on the floor behind the heating stove and scratch away with the fiddle and the bow. After many, many times and a great deal of patience, out came the strains of a waltz that his father, also an old-time fiddler, often played. His father, playing cards with the family, was surprised. While it was but a passage of the waltz, he said, well, Tony, you finally did get a tune. With a great deal of patience, Tony became a famous fiddler who was able to play any tune he ever heard, all by ear. And she goes on to say that that tune that he played, his first tune that he was able to get out of the fiddle, sitting behind the stove, was called Mike Dealey's Waltz. So that's one of the fiddle players from his father's generation. So it was a tune kind of associated with this fiddle player in the community. Tony then was able to get his own fiddle there for $3. He bought it from Mike Ahern, another Irishman in the community. And he must have been very young when he bought that, because then she says that he was only 9 years old when he got his first taste of a paid gig. He played for a barn dance at age 9 in the neighborhood with 2 older fiddlers, and he was paid $1.50 and ran home to his parents' house, jiggling the money in his pocket. It was $1.50 paid in 6 quarters, because the admittance to the dance for young men was 25 cents. So he paid a quarter to get in the dance, and this 9-year-old fiddler went home with 6 of them. And he soon became a busy dance fiddler in the community. So that is Tony's wedding photo there from 1917. And she says, from that first earning of $1.50, his parents never gave him spending money. He furnished music for all the country dances and in many of the halls and wedding pavilions in Cedar Lake Township. That very same year that he played for the barn dance, 1905, his parents also bought a piano for the house, which was quite an investment and pretty rare in that farming community, says Margaret. So, one thing that's interesting about that is they bought it for their daughter, and there's kind of a theme running through this of daughters playing the piano, and maybe the men being the fiddle players. But you can imagine if they bought that piano, that probably would have figured into their Sunday afternoon gatherings of music making at the house. Now, we know all this information, like I said, not because Tony wrote it down, but because his wife, Margaret, wrote it down. And well, this was all going on in Tony's household, just 2 farms over. Margaret Doherty was growing up in a different Doherty family with Tipperary and Clare roots. And she actually played the piano herself. She talks very little about her own musical development in her memoirs. She talks more about her husband, but she does mention that Savage, Minnesota, up the road, started an old-time dance club. And so Mike Doherty came up, and another Doherty. He was chairman of the club, and he wanted Tony to furnish music. So Tony got Johnny Birch to go, and I played the piano, and Bill Gallagher from Savage also played the violin. They continued those dances for 2 years. She also says she played the organ at their church, which was St. Catherine's. There were kind of 2 Catholic churches on either side of Cedar Lake Township. St. Patrick's on one side, St. Catherine's kind of on the north side, and that's the one that they went to, and she played the organ there. So she was a musician herself, and that's her childhood home there at the bottom. A nice photo from Sue. So these 2 young musicians growing up in this farm community were married in 1917. That's their wedding photo. And I believe the best man and bridesmaid there are Sheehans from Tony's mom's side of the family. I can't remember who the flower girl is. Maybe Sue can put it in the chat. I didn't write it down in my notes. But they were married and played music together. And so Margaret, when she wrote her memoir, she had all this incredible firsthand knowledge of what music making was like in that farm community. So what I'm going to do now is read some of her accounts of some of the contexts that music took place in on the farm down there in Scott County. And again, so she was born in 1894, and he was born in 1896. And so they were growing up in the early 1900s and involved in these area dances and events. And her recollections are amazing. That's the barn at their farm that they started themselves. And one of the occasions for music in Cedar Lake Township was a barn dance. And this is kind of long, but I'll read it. It's just so fascinating. I think I'll read the whole thing. So Margaret says, a new barn was built. This is a occasion of a barn dance. A new barn was built, or an old one was emptied of last year's hay, and 2 young men of the neighborhood would ask the farmer if they could have a dance there, also asking the farmer's wife if she would prepare the lunch From then on, they were responsible for hiring the musicians, readying the dance floor, building a temporary stage and seating area. Sunday evening was the time. After church on Sunday was the day for enjoyment. The other 6 days were needed for the farm work. Admittance for young men was 25 cents. The girls and parents went in free. At midnight, a good lunch of sandwiches, all homemade, along with cake, was served. A dance was always a dress-up affair, and the men came in their vested suits, the mothers and daughters in pretty dresses and slippers, as the band played such tunes as Over the Waves, The Frolic of the Frogs. It's a waltz that's on the recording, actually. The Lydia Two-Step, Where the River Shannon Flows, Happy to Meet and Sorry to Part, The Unfortunate Cup of Tea. So those last two, are probably a jig and a reel that go by those names. Where the River Shannon Flows, Irish music hall song that I think was played as a waltz. And then you have a two-step in there and another waltz. Over the Waves was another kind of, I think, a music hall melody. I can't remember if it would be a waltz or a jig, but it's interesting to hear you already. You're getting a hint that the repertoire was not by any means solidly all Irish tunes. At midnight, a delicious lunch was served with the best of coffee. The top price of coffee was 30 cents a pound. Now the two promoters took their hats and took up the collection, whatever one cared to give, and this took care of the band and the lunch. The food was cleared away and the dancing resumed. The older folks went home and the young people danced into the wee hours. After such a delightful time, we were ready for a good week's work on the farm, hoping for another barn dance the following Sunday evening. So that's wonderful. The description of building the stage and all that. I love it. And the timing of things and the lunch and the price. It's just like the detail in her memoirs is amazing. Now, this isn't a photo from the Doherty family. This is actually one that was graciously given to me to use by the Scott County Historical Society, part of their collection. This is a wedding. I don't think it's an Irish family, but it's a big wedding in Belle Plaine. So it's same kind of area, part of Minnesota. The double wedding, actually, I think in this picture. But this is one of the other occasions for music making in Cedar Lake Township were wedding parties. And this is what Margaret says about those. The home weddings had platforms built on the lawns. A stage was built, an organ from someone's home, and 4 or 5 fiddlers furnished fine music for the afternoon and far out to the wee hours of the morning. Big weddings included St. Catherine's and St. Patrick's parishes, business people from all the surrounding towns, and friends, relatives from the Twin Cities. Every family had one big wedding at least. So that's interesting there. She mentions the organ, and I know my friend Bill Peterson over in South Dakota, had done all this work with Dwight Lamb, a fiddle player from Iowa, northern Iowa area. And I know a lot of the recordings Dwight Lamb in that area would have had like chaplain's organs or these small portable organs that people played with fiddle tunes. So I'm imagining that was the kind of thing that they're talking about bringing out to some sort of pump organ, bringing it out there for the wedding dance to play with the fiddle players. Another occasion that Margaret talks about that is fascinating is St. Patrick's Day. So, and this is a photo here of a St. Patrick's Day parade in Belle Plaine up the road from Cedar Lake Township. This again comes from the Scott County Historical Society. Amazing photo. And this is what Margaret talks about with music relating to St. Patrick's Day on the farm. By 2:30 p.m., dinner was over and the chairs and the benches were placed in order for the afternoon matinee. The young crowd had prepared a home talent show and had faced many storms since Christmas, but it was really put on with exceptional talent. In the evening at 8 p.m., there was a repeat with vocal solos and Irish step dancing between the acts. At 11:30 p.m., the floor was cleared for dancing and the music by several fiddlers and a piano. And of course, your Grandpa Tony was one of the fiddlers as he had played for dances from the age of 9. The dancing went on until the wee hours. It was a great day for the Irish, but people that weren't Irish came from all the neighboring towns also. And then she finishes this entry, Erin go bra, Ireland forever. Irish pride on St. Patrick's Day with music and step dancing. Amazing. Now, I'll say, if people are posting questions, I can't actually see them on the screen because I was worried that they would block the screen. So I think what I'll do is I'll just wait till the end and look back at the questions, and we can do some chat then. I think I'm doing okay on time, so we should be fine for that. So another context for music making that Tony Doherty participated in was a contest, a fiddle contest. And there were quite a few fiddle contests that happened in the upper Midwest and really, as far as I can tell, all around the United States in the 1920s. It's partially inspired by a lot of news reports that were out there about Henry Ford, sort of celebrity tycoon that he was, Elon Musk of his day, I guess. People were, just so interested in anything that Henry Ford was interested in. And he was a big fan of old time dancing, square dancing, and then fiddle music. And there were all the news reports that he was interested in this. And then he had these various halls that he started up, and he was hiring musicians and sort of, he'd hear about a great fiddler in some rural community, and he'd offer the person a chance to come play for his square dance band at his fancy dance hall in Michigan, and he had another place out east. And this just kind of created a big hubbub around the revival of square dancing and fiddle playing. And then there was this spate of fiddle contests that kind of swept across the region in the late 20s. And Tony won one of them that happened in Jordan, Minnesota. And I haven't been able to find the newspaper account of this. I'm hoping it's out there somewhere. Eventually I'll get down to the archives in Scott County or at the Minnesota Historical Society and see if I can dig it up. But just in my other research, I've come across other people that did these fiddle contests, including Lazime Brousseau. They're a French-Canadian of Rhinelander, Wisconsin, that brought home the trophy for Rhinelander and then was offered a recording gig, which is another thing that I think some of these people entering these contests were hoping they would maybe get some sort of fame or some professional music experience out of the thing. Lazime did manage to do that. The gentleman in the middle here is an Irish American fiddle player from sort of the area west of Madison, Hill Point. I don't know. And Wisconsin people here can tell me if that counts as the Driftless region or not. But he was written about in a book called Old World Wisconsin, and the author of that book, Fred Holmes, said that scarcely is there an Irish community in Wisconsin that does not have a typical fiddler who plays his music by ear and keeps time with the stomp of his heel. Tom Kroll won some fiddle contests. The gentleman on the top on the right, Albert Hanna, actually, interesting, he comes up in these song collections that I've worked with from northern Minnesota. He actually lived in my hometown for a while in Bemidji and sang for Franz Rickaby, a song collector. And then he moved down to the Twin Cities and was one of the entrants in one of the fiddle contests in Minneapolis as an older man. But Tony entered one of these contests in Jordan in the late 20s, and he won, and he was very proud of this. He played The Devil's Dream, which is sort of a pan-ethnic tune, I guess, at this point. It probably was at that point too. It was an American fiddle tune, had some roots in Ireland and Scotland. And he plays it. It's the only unaccompanied tune that he plays on the recording made in the 50s. So this is the first recording I'll play from that home recording. And his daughter announces here that her dad's going to play his contest-winning tune, The Devil's Dream.
Dad is going to play The Devil's Dream. This tune, he won a loving cup in Jordan. What year, Dad, about?
1928.
1928, huh? Okay, that was the Scott County champion fiddle player of the Northwest, huh? Well, that's pretty good.
So that's great stuff. It's fun to hear that, and he's a great player. The family grew to 11 children. They lost one baby in childbirth, but or died very young. But this was the family around the time that they decided to move to St. Paul. So yeah, 11 kids, and they were all born on the farm, and then they moved down to St. Paul, or up to St. Paul, I guess, in 1942. And settled or moved into a house on Selby Avenue, 1974 Selby Avenue. For those St. Paul people here, that's just a kind of a diagonal block away from St. Mark's Church. And Tony got a job initially as a carpenter for the Milwaukee Railroad. He later worked for the Progress Pattern and Foundry Company. And he continued playing the fiddle when he was in St. Paul. And he played for Irish community events put on by the Irish organizations of that time. And he actually partnered, as we saw in those photos that I started off with another fiddle player from the same area. So Mike Nash, the grandpa of my neighbor, also came from Cedar Lake Township, that same community. And here they are seen in another, so that group of photos we think was taken by a photographer, basically for the newspaper, in the lead up to St. Patrick's Day, 1948. And this is the one photo that ran, and they're wearing their St. Patrick's Day hats there, Tony and Mike, and then Marge is seated at the piano, and they're at the Doherty home here on Selby that the family moved to. And they would have moved there, well, they moved to 42, so this was 6 years later. And the caption says, Aaron Gobra, pictured above are two old-time Irish fiddlers, members of a group of 6 who will furnish music for the annual St. Patrick's Day dance of Division 4 Ancient Order of Hibernians of Ramsey County next Wednesday in Junior Pioneer Hall. At left, Anthony V. Doherty, 1974 Selby Avenue, tunes up with Michael Nash of 1882 Selby Avenue. Providing harmony at the piano is Doherty's daughter, Marge. Amazing. I love that photo, and all the photos that came with it. It's just fantastic. And the St. Patrick's Day hats. It's amazing. So the Ancient Order of Hibernians had been active here from back into the late 1800s, I believe, and had been, putting on picnics and various events. You can find mention of them doing things here in town. And so that's was the sponsor of this event. And it says 6 musicians. It'd be great to find more information about that 1948 event and see who the other musicians were, but we think we have 3 of them here in this photo. So another community organization was getting started around that same time, in addition to the AOH, and that was the Irish American Club of the Twin Cities. And this was a more, so at least initially, very informal organization that was started by some Irish immigrants mainly, including the guy in the lower right-hand corner, Pat Hill, who came from County Tipperary. And I believe the guy standing there with the saxophone, Emmett McCarthy, I think he was an immigrant as well. He was one of the founders of the Brian Boru Irish Pipe Band here in town. And this is an incredible photo that I think probably matches up with that newspaper clipping there. The photo came from Marty McHugh, who we see in the middle of the photo, who's still here in town, still playing the accordion. Amazing, the link that Marty provides to this generation. But Marty came here in the late 50s, and there he's playing at probably this New Year's event, I think, New Year's Eve dance sponsored by the Twin Cities Irish American Club at Payne Avenue Hall at 1001 Payne Avenue, St. Paul. Tony Gruchot and his orchestra will play. So Tony Gruchot's orchestra was like a popular wedding, kind of popular music orchestra of the time. And I think what's happening here is they were booked to play the event, and then the Irish guys got up and are doing a set of tunes or playing along on something. And the fiddle player that's kind of blurry in the front there, that's actually Mike Nash. So the one that's in the other photos with Tony Doherty. And the other fiddle player there is Mike Hughes, who is from further out in the Minnesota River Valley, kind of near Clontarf, Minnesota, and another really fascinating family I'm hoping to follow up more on. Emmett McCarthy standing there playing the sax, fascinating. Was one of the founders of the Brian Boru Pipe Band. I think the other sax player is probably somebody that was in Tony Groucho's orchestra. And then there's Marty on his box, not long off the boat from Ireland. Amazing stuff. Like I said, Paddy Hill, one of the founders of the Irish American Club, down in the right-hand corner. And Marty, when he did an oral history interview for us with Dahi Sproul, who I saw Dahi was logged in there. Hi, if you're still listening, Dahi. This is a clip I love of Marty talking about his arrival in St. Paul and being welcomed into what seems like a really like established community of Irish people and musicians. And he borrows an accordion right away, and he stays in this guy. McNamara was away on his honeymoon, and so he gets McNamara's bed. And then he mentions Mike Nash and Mike Hughes and Paddy Hill.
The weekend I arrived here, McNamara got married. He was going away on his honeymoon. So I had his room.
Yes.
That's how it got started.
And that do you remember, you said you went to a GAA event?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was great. There was well, Paddy Hill was playing the fiddle there, and Mike Nash, Mike Hughes.
What did they play? Mike Nash and Mike
Fiddles.
Hughes? Yeah.
They're all fiddlers.
Yeah.
And I didn't have an accordion. There's a fella here from Galway, Charlie Doherty, and he had an accordion, and he was kind enough to let me play it. So I sat in with the boys, and I enjoyed it. It was great.
Well, you settled right. Your second day,
Yes.
you're playing.
Oh, I fit right in.
Yeah.
And I was off. I didn't go to work for a week.
I love that. Marty, with his characteristic sense of humor, says, "I didn't go to work for a week, playing tunes in St. Paul, slotted right in with this Irish community here. Amazing stuff." So, yeah, we know that the Irish American Club sponsored these dances. There's a history actually written by the Ancient Order of Hibernians that was written in the 90s, and they talk about the Irish American Club events featuring Tony Doherty and his friends, Mike Sullivan and friends, Pat Hill on the fiddle, Mike McGivney on his flute, who's a flute player that Marty talks about, Mike Hughes and his brother-in-law, Mike Nash, both fiddlers. So the two guys in this photo playing the fiddle were brothers-in-law. They were both married. They're married to two sisters from Donegal. And I'm learning more about that story as I go. And Marty McHugh, Irish button accordionist par excellence. Just to name a few, Marty McHugh and his sister Kathleen entertained often at club events with their dual step dancing. So that's a little secret from Marty's past, that he used to dance with his sister at these Irish American Club meetings. So Tony's children, Tony and Margaret's children, also were quite musical, many of them. This is a little snippet from Margaret's memoirs. She says, now Tony, she's requiring like a music in their home in St. Paul, or possibly on the farm. Tony's violin is in tune and the music is starting, and the little ones are tired. They're napping upstairs and they do not hear the music, but those that do are threading the light fantastic. Mary does the Irish jig and Joan the Highland fling, and Tony Jr. dances Jump the Milk Can. And that is fascinating. I was so lucky through meeting Chris Cheney, the grandson, invited myself and a couple students from the Center for Irish Music to go down and play at a Doherty family reunion that was happening in Newell Park, just down the road from my house, and went down there. And one of the two surviving children of Tony and Margaret, Pat Doherty, brought this up, this Jump the Milk Can dance. So apparently there was a, what does Margaret say about it? When we lived in the country, there was a man who would bring a 5-gallon milk can, putting it in the middle of the room, and to the tunes of the violin, he would jump over the can, jump the can over and back. And Tony Jr. was a little fellow when this was done, but he mastered it too. And the family thought this was, great fun, that the little boy of the family was hopping around back and forth doing some sort of dance over the milk can. It's fantastic. So Tony Sr. now did have a number of health problems that got kind of started happening in the late 40s and kind of plagued him then through the rest of his life. He was in and out of hospitals for various things. He had to go down to the Mayo Clinic in 1952 for a surgery. And I thought this was nice. Margaret remembers that the Twin Cities Irish American Club took up a collection of $250 to help the Dohertys cover their hospital bills. Tony was back furnishing music for the club events as soon as he was able. So that's amazing, and it shows you the strength of these community organizations during that time period. And this is just another photo from that set of photos. Probably could be the Doherty's youngest son there, or possibly a grandson there in the foreground conducting the band there. I love that shot. So this is the full Doherty family, circa 1967. They sadly lost their son Cyril in a drowning accident in Lake Johanna on the north side of the Twin Cities. So they have 10 children in this photo, and a lot of musicians among the bunch. So from the left there, Marge, Helen, Monica, Anella, Pat, Mel, Joan, Dolores, Mary, and Tony Jr., who jumped the milk can on the far right, and that's Tony and Margaret. Tony, of course, played the fiddle, and we know Margaret played the piano and the organ. Marge, on the far left there, was quite a musician, played the piano and the piano accordion. She's also in one of the photos holding a guitar. She also, I think, plays a little bit on the fiddle in one point in one of the recordings. Very musical person. Monica, the third from the left, who's Sue's mother, who helped me out with the photos. Monica was a beautiful singer. Joan there, who's in the awesome pattern dress, Chris's mom, she played the piano as well. And Mary, second in from the right, next to Tony jumped the milk can, she played the piano as well. And the recording captures all the four daughters doing music in some way, shape, or form. And there's some chat on the recording then, including trying to get Dad and Mom to say things on the recording, which they don't completely succeed in doing. But on the recording, Marge and Mary come across as ringleaders in the whole recording project. And it's fantastic. It's just such a fantastic recording. At one point, they sort of like address the listener, and this was the era of, it was 1958, they made the recording in the Lawrence Welk era. And so Marge kind of vamps in the background on her piano accordion, while Mary sort of talks about their experience of trying to get Dad to record tunes. And I'll just play a little bit of this. They go into kind of like a Lawrence Welk skit at the end, which you should go into our archive and listen to that. It's a hoot, especially if you know Lawrence Welk. But this is what Mary says about making the recording.
Well, folks, this is Mary. It's February 23rd, 1958. We're about to the end of our tape. We've had a lot of fun doing this recording. Drank lots of coffee, smoked lots of cigarettes. We have one guest left that I think you'll all enjoy. He'll be along in a minute. So that goes into this Lawrence Welk skit. But I love that. Had a lot of fun. Drank lots of coffee, smoked lots of cigarettes. Sounds like a great time was had by all. This is my list as it stands. Currently, I've been still working on titles for some things and trying to cross-reference, but there are 35 unique instrumental tunes on the recording and 2 vocal numbers, 2 songs. That's the list there. Some of the titles are supplied by Mary and Marge as they narrate the recording, and Tony even says a few words. And then some of these titles come from just my own, the titles that I know from playing Irish music of some things. And then my friends Amy Shaw and Mike Sawyer have helped out naming a few things as well, especially, and you'll see that there's some decidedly non-Irish numbers in the mix, including a few Scandinavian tunes and some very just kind of what we would maybe think of as stock kind of American fiddle tunes like Arkansas Traveler in there as well, and some, maybe more Scottish numbers like Clydeside Lassies. A lot of these tunes really fit well with what was going on more broadly in the upper Midwest in terms of
kind of fiddle music. This here is a little sampling of a fascinating collection that Mike Sawyer brought into the library, and we scanned one day. It's a collection that comes from a dance band that was active in Superior, Wisconsin, just next to Duluth in the 30s, funded by the WPA. It's sort of fascinating. And this is their tune book. And I just pulled a few of the tunes there from the tune book that match up with tunes that are in the Doherty recording. So this was a band playing for dances in a slightly more urban setting up there in Superior, but a lot of overlap with what Tony was playing, and sort of a, an Irish American repertoire, you might call it. And this band was sort of multi-ethnic, not purely Irish at all. And even though I think Cedar Lake Township was such a tight-knit and largely Irish community, the tunes that show up on the recording are more broad. So we're going to listen to a few here in the minutes that are left, and then I want to make sure I take a few questions. But this tune is popular in Irish music, but also appears in Ryan's Mammoth collection and other American collections, Bonnie Kate. And you don't always know on the recording which daughter is playing piano, but I'm pretty sure, I think they say the name on this one. This is Mary playing piano with Tony.
This is Mary and Dad playing the tune Bonnie Kate. Okay.
We're just going to play little snippets of these. If you want to come, so all these recordings are all up on the McKiernan Library website, and you can find that through celticjunction.org/library, or just look up McKiernan Library. There are a number of tracks where, like I said, I don't know who exactly is playing piano. There's some quite wonderfully aggressive piano being played, and really, like I get the impression that perhaps Marge especially, but maybe Marge and Mary were just really avidly into music. And in Margaret's, I guess why I say Marge is in Margaret's memoir, she talks about Marge sort of inheriting her dad's love of music. And there's one point on the tape when she's talking to the recording device, and she's like, what can I do? Oh, I can play the fiddle. And she grabs the fiddle and she plays a little tune. She just has this kind of, I get this impression that she was just in love with music and wanted to play all the time, which is wonderful. I'll play one of these. This is kind of maybe what you call like an American fiddle tune, Wake Up Susan. And I think she really, I have a feeling this is Marge on the piano, and she's really kind of going to town in how she's backing it. It's great. She does that whole kind of like bop 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 bop, this sort of syncopated. It's just really interesting to hear what she's doing on it. Like I won't play those other tracks because I'm running out of time here. But if you are interested, I mean, it's worth going through the whole thing and kind of hearing the breadth of what these folks were playing. Toward the end of the tape, I think it's kind of like I was trying to go back over my notes today. I think side 2 of the tape is perhaps featuring Joan on the piano, and this one I think is probably daughter Joan, Chris's mom, playing the piano with a tune that's popular in Irish music. We call it the Geese in the Bog. I can't remember if it has a different name in American collections, but here's Geese in the Bog. Again, it's really kind of it's really involved piano playing. It's cool. I think it's really cool. So one of my favorite parts of the recording is there's this one point where the Irish trio is announced, and this is Marge has switched over to accordion here, and Tony's on the fiddle, and Mary's at the piano, and the Irish trio is going to play a tune, and the Irish trio plays a Scandinavian waltz. So it's kind of a wonderful multi-ethnic conglomeration here. Check this out.
The Irish trio, Dad, Mary, and Marge playing the Christiana Waltz.
Christiana was the old name for Oslo, I understand. I don't know that much about Scandinavian music, so I'm not going to try to analyze too much. But there was a YouTube video there that I won't show, but you can find videos of Scandinavian musicians and just Upper Midwest musicians playing that tune. Here's this photo that sort of hints that that Marge played guitar also. They're posing for this photo shoot on the stairway in the Doherty home there, and she's got the guitar out on that one, which is fascinating to me as a guitar player. One of the highlights of the recording, and I'm not just saying this because I think Sue is listening, it really is a highlight, the beautiful singing of Monica, Tony's daughter, and this is her unaccompanied singing. She sings two kind of Irish music hall songs, Rose of Tralee and When I Dream of Old Erin, I'm Dreaming of You. You can see the sheet music there. And there's some effect, I think, too, from the way the recording was made. It has this beautiful echo to it, but I really love this recording.
Of Old Erin, I'm Dreaming of You. When the nightingale sings a sweet melody, and the scent of the flowers perfumes the night breeze, then I dream of my old home far over the sea, by the lakes of Killarney, where I long to be. When I dream of Old Erin, I'm dreaming of you, with your sweet, roguish smile and your true eyes so blue. For my love like the shamrock each day stronger grew. When I dream of Old Erin, I'm dreaming of you.
Oh, it's beautiful. So Tony wrote tunes, or he wrote at least this one tune, Polly Milking Her Cow, and possibly this other one. I'm just kind of guessing that because of the localized name, or he got it from somebody locally there in Cedar Lake Township. But I'll play a little bit of this one. So this, the pair of photos on either side here, that Sue was able to supply to me, show Tony there in what Sue says was his natural habitat in the backyard doing yard work. He did, after he retired from working at the foundry, he had a company for a while where he did like handyman repairs and things. And he was always working, doing little things, just like my dad was when I was growing up. And and that's Margaret there. And Sue says that that's her natural state, the happy and welcoming grandmother, and just kind of a beautiful matriarch of the family. But one great thing about the photos and just a fun little detail is his finger is in a bandage in the photos from 1948. And as it happens, the one little bit of talking he does on the tape from 10 years later in 1958, he talks about whacking his finger with a hammer. So I'll just play a little of it just so you can hear him talk. He complained, there's a story about him complaining about people thinking that he was from Ireland. And he was in a hospital once, and the people said, when did you come over? Because he has a bit of an accent. So it that sort of tells you how maybe tightly knit and Irish this community he grew up in was. But I'll try to fast forward to the part where he's talking about fixing the stairway and hitting his finger.
Yeah. Well, I think that here, you say something with here. Anything.
Well, I got the stairway all done out of Tony.
You have.
And we built a very good stairway there. It's a nice solid one, and it looks pretty good.
How's your thumb?
Well, it's 48 inches wide, and...
No, I said, how's your thumb?
Oh,
I mean your
my
finger.
thumb.
Yeah.
My thumb. It's my second finger.
Oh.
Oh, I hit that an awful rap with the hammer, but I don't know whether I'll be able to play the violin or not, but I'll try it.
Oh, it's fantastic. Okay, so I made it to this just right at 1 o'clock, and this is the grand finale, and then I'm gonna stay on for a few questions after this. We do need to wrap up by 15 after, I'd say. But this is absolutely incredible. So this is an actual video that Sue had of Tony playing at Christmas 1960. And there's kind of a longer section of video. Maybe it's something we can share through the library website at some point. I just kind of cut down to the part where he starts playing. But it's a silent video, and the family is gathered, and they've just had a visit from Santa Claus, and all the grandkids are running around and dancing. And Tony takes out the fiddle, and it's interesting to see how he holds it there kind of low. And then his daughter Marge is at the piano. And so we actually have a video, and there's no sound in it, in the video. But what I did was I did a sneaky trick, and I took sound from one of the files, one of the recordings made in 1958. So I'll close by playing this incredible video, and then I'll take some questions. All right. Fantastic. So I see a couple of questions came in here. Great. So is a copy of Margaret's memoir available at the McKiernan Library? Well, yes, potentially. It's all digitized and it hasn't been properly put into the archive yet. And that's something I'll have to talk to the family about too, to make sure it's okay if we include it. But it is an amazing document. And I think at least like the sections talking about life on the farm are really, really valuable for anyone researching traditional music. Kevin here says, how certain is the idea that Tony's grandfather came from County Clare? Surname Doherty was almost restricted to County Donegal during Tony's grandfather's time and virtually non-existent in County Clare. Also, it's interesting to note that when the family settled in America, their name was listed as Doherty with the AU. The shift from Doherty to Doherty was very common when the Donegal Dohertys would go for work in Scotland. Right, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, all I have to go on is the obituaries I was able to find. And then I know Sue, that might still be listening in, has done research on Margaret's family, who were again also Dohertys, and has traced them to like the Turles area in Tipperary. So I don't know. And then the same question there I see with the Superior WPA tune book. They're not up on the website yet, but those I'm sure I could give you access to if you email me. And I would like to make like a digital presentation of them online at some point, because again, it's an amazing resource. So I'll just see if there's anything else in the chat here I should respond to. Just thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. It's great to be able to talk about this stuff, and please feel free to follow up any questions you might have. Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much.
Well, Mr. Brian Miller, we certainly appreciate your expertise and your time. And I'm sure I speak for everybody that listened in, that it's fascinating to have such rich material right here in Minnesota, and to know that you're doing this great work with the Eoin McKiernan Library. Long may it be so. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much, Brian. This will be available on the Celtic Junction Arts Center YouTube site. Might be next week before we get it up there, because we do a little bit of editing on the beginning and the end to make sure that it is YouTube worthy. But check in. You can also see some of the other lovely seminars we have done. Have a wonderful weekend. Please check in with us for the St. Paul Irish Arts Week.
Yeah. Can I add one thing?
Yeah, it's your.
Sorry. Yeah, just one. I forgot to say it there. One of the tunes in the collection is a waltz that we've been teaching to students at the Center for Irish Music. And as part of this partnership event that's coming up in 25 minutes with this group in Armagh in the north of Ireland, some kids over there actually learned this tune from Tony Doherty's repertoire, and kids here have learned it. And we've made a video collaboration between all these kids in Armagh and kids here playing Tony Doherty's waltz. So it lives on. You can still register to attend that if you want to hear the collaboration. Go to the CelticJunction.org and find the Irish Arts Week page and register for the, what's it called? Traditional Arts Partnership, TAP, the TAP collaboration. There it is. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone. Bye.